There's so much Jeskai being played. It's probably time for creativity to go away. Monday, Meta Monday. Monday, Meta Monday. How we doing, folks? Welcome back. Hope everybody enjoyed their weekend. Happy Monday, happy Labor Day to those of you here in the United States. Hey, Femi, thanks for the 2 years. Hey, we'll be around, and you've got that sword there, so hopefully you'll be in chat still. Hope everything's all right with you and yours. It's Labor Day in Canada too. Good to know. The neighbors to the north also have a day off. So one of the pieces of feedback I've gotten from a wide range of people is that they were sad that we weren't doing Meta Monday stuff. And I don't know exactly what format the format we're going to do today is going to be the norm moving forward. I need to figure out exactly what metrics we want to look at and things like that. One of the reasons why I stopped doing Meta Monday consistently was because I didn't like it. I like breaking down data. The problem was that there just stopped being enough tournaments on MTG Melee, which is the best clean data source we have in Magic. That being said, we do have some other data sources. For example, today we're going to take a look at the Hooglandia Open that had happened a week ago now at this point, but the primary data source that we're going to be looking at today is untapped.gg. And while there are a number of small issues with Untapped's metrics that we can talk about, they are definitely the best data source that we have. At the core, for those that aren't familiar with Untapped.gg, in addition to being the Twitch browser extension that lets you mouse over things on the screen while you're watching the stream, Untapped also has a deck tracker app that tracks your deck data and kind of farms it and uploads the stats so they can collect lots of data on Magic stuff here on their website. So what I've got here is I've got data over time for the Untapped historic best of 3, and I've confirmed you need their premium thing to gain access to the historic best of 3 stuff with them, but I've confirmed that I'm allowed to pull this one up on stream on occasion. So if you want access to this yourself, check out Untapped.gg's premium stuff. The charts here are pretty reasonable. You can see here, this is the Jumpstart Historic Horizon release, and then we've got different decks down the side here where we can add other things onto these graphs if you want to take a look at them. But the two I want to start out by talking about today is Jeskai Creativity and Jeskai Control. And these are both purple lines because they're Jeskai decks. And as I mouse over here, you can see pop-ups of what their metrics are from the days where we track them. And you can one thing that is predictable is that you look here on the first day that Jumpstart Historic Horizons releases, and you'll notice Creativity's win rate is at the top the first day it happens. And this is to be expected for a couple of reasons. The first is that, one, look at that 4.5% play rate. Its play rate is low because it's a new take on an old archetype that hasn't really been on the ladder. And the second is that because it's a new take on an updated archetype, people haven't adjusted to be able to compete with it. So as we move my mouse cursor over, you can see you can track on here across the days what the metrics look like. So on the second day, Creativity gets up to 6.4%, and then you keep moving over, and you see Creativity is this bottom purple line to start, but then it quickly becomes the top purple line here, 8.9%, up to 10.5%, up to almost 11%. And as you move over here, not only do we see the play rate go up and then drop off slightly here a little bit as I assume people just like get bored of endlessly stomping their opponents, we note that the win rates really stabilize here. So we see this spike at the start when it's new on the win rate, and then it comes down as more people are playing it and as more people get used to playing against it. And then it really kind of stabilizes in this 61 to 62% win rate range for Creativity. Again, just to highlight for people that haven't watched my past Meta Monday videos, what we generally consider to be a healthy win rate is something under 55%. So when you see things that have this kind of sustained high win rate, it's something to be concerned about. Another thing to note in these metrics is that because these metrics aren't tracking both players, it's only people using the deck tracker. This does not remove mirror matches. So looking at these win rates, the win rates here would be a little bit higher for both of these Jeskai decks if you assumed that they're winning 50% of their mirrors, because mirror matches, when you're above 50%, pull your win rate back down towards 50. So yeah, there's also a few other things in here we take a peek at. So like Grawl Shamans is another deck here that you see out. Starts a little bit popular and then ends up getting dragged down a little bit. And honestly, Grawl Shamans is like one of the third most popular decks. We can add in Elves and Phoenix and Delirium. And you kind of see like, you know, all of these other decks here in Historic in terms of the deck variety in this format, they're all pretty close down here in this like 2 to 3% range. And then just like up here at 3x the play rate of everything else are the Jeskai decks. They're very good and they're very popular. They weren't just they're not just popular on the ladder either. We had the Helglandia Open a week ago at this point on August 29th. And not only did Izzet Creativity win this tournament, but it had a very solid win rate in this tournament as well. So these metrics here were a little bit muddled because we had Jeskai Creativity with 3 decks, but this Izzet Creativity entry at 2 was also the Jeskai deck. It was just classified differently because people self-identify deck lists on MTG Melee. So if you combine the 15 and 3 with 7 and 6 up here, you end up with 22 and 9, which is about a 70% win rate for the creativity decks in this tournament. So not only has the creativity deck been fairly dominant from a ladder perspective based on the untapped.gg data, but it's also been very dominant in the tournament setting as well. All right, I think that's all I have to say. Anybody have any questions or comments before we close out this video? Anything you want to see me click on over here, or questions on how these lines and metrics are presented here as we scroll through stuff? This I will say, one of the things that's often the case with metrics like this, there's a lot of things you can say with these metrics, but as someone who anecdotally has been playing, someone who's anecdotally been playing on the ladder a lot, these metrics line up with my experience playing the format, that the Jeskai deck is way more popular and a cut above everything else. Standard MPL, who the fuck cares about standard? Standards, it's Monday the 6th. Standard rotates on Thursday the 16th. You got 10 more days. Eldraine could fuck off into the sun. That's your metagame report on standard. Get it out of here. Helglandia Open, September 19th. Standard will be rotated. Ain't nobody care what the 30 or 40 or however many people are in the MPL and Rivals decided to play for their try-hard tournament this weekend in the format that's going to disappear in 10 days. Ejected into the sun. I'm doing well, P. Diddy. All right, I guess just to have a final closing wrap up, because I know people ask this question, because I'm going to clip this Meta Monday section if you're coming in late. It's going to go up on YouTube. It's like 10 minutes of rantiness and going over the metrics you see here on your screen. What would I do if I was in charge of supposed to be fixing things? Indomitable Creativity has hit a point where it is no longer healthy for the format. We're only going to continue getting bigger, scarier things that you could flip into play. I think pointing out there, I've seen people say like, okay, well, Serra's Emissary is actually the problem, Jeff. And it's not just Serra's Emissary, right? Like before Serra's Emissary, Coma was a thing, Sage Locust God combo was a thing. They banned Time Warp instead of Creativity because of Velocamous. There's always going to be another thing that breaks with Indomitable Creativity. And for people that aren't familiar, I just like to highlight why I think this card really needs to go away. And the core is that I think at the core, you need to compare this card with another one here. So Transmogrify here is another card that's legal in Historic. And I think Transmogrify versus Creativity is a great example of a reasonable, healthy design that offers meaningful counterplay while doing something sweet and powerful versus something that's toxic and doesn't belong in the format and needs to go away. And to compare these two cards, one, Indomitable Creativity not only transforms your creatures, but also transforms your artifacts, which means you can't just hold up creature removal, you also have to have artifact removal. Indomitable Creativity targets multiple things, which means even if you have artifact and creature removal, they can just pay multiple for X to get around your single piece of spot removal. 3, it can get multiple things at once, right? So you can't even just set up to say, okay, I'm going to beat their Elesh Norn, or I'm going to beat their Sarah's Emissary, because I'll just Creativity for X's multiple and flip multiple of them into play. Something that's very common in the post-board games with the Creativity deck. If you're not familiar playing a creature deck, you'll be like, okay, I've got my Deck in Stone or my Giant Killer, and they'll Creativity for 2 or 3, and they'll be like, okay, I have protection from creatures, and I have protection from instants or sorceries now, so you can no longer kill my thing, and you can't kill me. Transmogrify, another really important thing, is Grafdigger's Cage is a premier sideboard card in Historic. The way Indomitable Creativity is templated, it doesn't give a shit about Grafdigger's Cage. That card can be in play and you'll still floop your things into play. Transmogrify, get stopped by Grafdigger's Cage. You know, they're basically, there's plenty of other cards like Burial Rites and Transmogrify in the format that allow you to like put these powerful things into play quickly, but they just offer way more meaningful counterplay. And the reason why Creativity is so pushed and so busted is because the way that card is templated and designed, it just gets around all of the normal counterplay that you would with, you know, having Graveyard Hate for something like Burial Rites, or things like Spot Removal, or Grafdigger's Cage for things like Transmogrify. And I think this problem is only going to get worse as the format matures, and rather than trying to ban around the issue with something like, you know, banning Time Warp that shouldn't have been banned, they need to just, like, take out the actual problem. Second is that Memory Lapse probably should go away. Like, 2 mana unconditional counter spells in this format, even if you technically get to draw it again, like, technically making you draw it again is often an upside, not a downside, especially when you're lapsing medium cards in the early game. Or in the late game too, honestly, you know, they like draw their Land War Elves on turn 12 and you like memory lapse it and make them draw their Land War Elves again. It's pretty rancid. Someone asked if we can look at best of 1 data. Sure, we can look at your coin flippy data real quick. I don't really have strong opinions on this. I think this format is poop. And you know how you can tell this format is it's kind of poopy? Just 5-color Trickery, 3rd most played deck. Come on, who wants to deal with that? Listen, chat, Magic is a game that's not well balanced if there's not sideboards. Although, I guess you could say, looking at these metrics, this format actually has more diversity than the top decks in this format actually have only 6.5% to 7% play rates here. So it's actually more diverse than best of 3 at the moment. So maybe we'll take that back. I don't know. Trickery is 3 decks. Oh, it is totally 3 decks. Okay, I take it back. I missed that. Like I said, I don't really care. So it's 12, 13% Trickery. So this is 6, 12, 13, 13.5% Trickery. I would like to point out that none of the Trickery decks have very good win rates, which again points back to the fact that people are just bad at separating their feels from reality. You don't remember the games where Tybalt's Trickery bricked off and effectively did nothing, but you do remember the games where it did its thing on turns 4 and 5 and it feels really unfair and unbeatable. So it's actually worth noting too, and maybe, I don't know, the reason why I don't usually look at best of 1 is because Magic is a different enough game in best of 1 that even though there is there's the same card pool, the gameplay generated is incredibly different. So yeah. So Trickery means there's a lot of Trickery versus Trickery. Yes and no. So the rough math is that if you assume a deck has 10% of its matches are mirrors, its win rate, if you pull out those mirrors, will go up by about 1% or so. So 14%, like 1.5%. So like even if you added 1.5% to each of these, assuming they're playing a bunch of trickery mirrors, all of these win rates are actually still very within the confines of reasonable, right? Like this is almost 55%, but not quite, and these are lower. So even if you try and account for mirror matches there pulling this down, these are still pretty fine / whatever you want to call it. All right, that's been 15 minutes of